Today we're jumping into a spiritual tradition that's followed by over 1 billion people. And what makes it so fascinating is that it doesn't have a single founder or one central holy book. Yep, we're taking a look at the incredibly vast world of Hinduism.
So, that leads to a huge question, right? How do you even begin to get your head around a faith with that many followers, but no one person who started it all, no single governing body, no one definitive text? I mean, where do you even start?
Well, like with anything this big and complex, you start at the beginning. You start with the core ideas, the very foundations that everything else is built on. So here's our game plan. We're going to kick things off with the sacred texts that form the bedrock of the whole tradition. Then we'll unpack the big ideas, the cosmic cycle of life, death, and liberation. After that, we'll look at the 4 main goals for living a good life, see how all these beliefs are actually put into practice, and finally, we'll understand why it's so much better to think of Hinduism as a whole family of different faiths. First up, the scriptures. And right off the bat, we run into a really fascinating and, fundamental split in how these texts are seen. So Hindu texts are basically split into 2 big categories. On one hand, you have Shruti, which means what is heard. Think of these as the eternal, divinely revealed truths, the kind of stuff ancient sages just heard directly from the cosmos. On the other hand, you have Smriti, which means what is remembered. These are texts written by human authors that explain and build upon those core truths. You could almost say one is like the original source code and the other is the user manual. And believe me, this is a huge collection of texts. We're talking about foundational works like the Vedas, the deep philosophical dives of the Upanishads, and incredible epic poems like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, which, by the way, contains the world-famous Bhagavad Gita. It's an absolutely massive library of spiritual wisdom. Okay, so with those texts as our foundation, let's get into the big ideas that really shape the Hindu worldview. At the very heart of it all is this kind of cosmic engine, and it's powered by 3 ideas that are totally intertwined: action, rebirth, and liberation. It all kicks off with karma. Now, you've probably heard this word thrown around, but at its core, it's pretty simple. It's the universal law of cause and effect. Every single action, and this is important, the intent behind that action has a consequence. So all those consequences, all that built-up karma, where does it go? Well, it powers the next big idea, samsara. This is the continuous cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. It's the long journey a soul takes through countless lifetimes, and that journey is constantly being shaped by its past actions. Okay, so if you're stuck in a cycle, what's the point? What's the end game? The goal is moksha. This means liberation or freedom. It's the moment you finally break free from that endless cycle of samsara and the weight of karma. This is the ultimate spiritual goal. So you can see how these 3 pieces fit together, right? It's not just a list of concepts. It's a dynamic process. Your karma shapes your life within samsara, the great cycle of rebirth. And the whole point of the spiritual journey is to work towards moksha, that final, ultimate liberation. Okay, so with this huge cosmic cycle going on in the background, how is a person supposed to actually live? Well, Hinduism provides a really practical framework for this. You can think of it as a kind of blueprint for living a full and balanced life. And that blueprint is built around 4 central aims, and they're known as the Purusharthas. These are considered the proper, worthy goals for any human being. And what's amazing about this framework is how balanced it is. It starts with dharma, that's all about living an ethical life and doing your duties, but it also includes artha, the pursuit of work, prosperity, and material well-being. Then there's kama, which is all about desires, passions, and enjoying the pleasures of life in a healthy way. And finally, overarching everything, is that ultimate goal of moksha, spiritual liberation. The real genius here is that it's not about choosing the spiritual over the worldly, but about weaving them all together into one meaningful life. So, we've got the texts, we've got the core beliefs, but how does all of this actually look in day-to-day life? Let's check out some of the different ways Hindus practice and express their faith. And just like the scriptures, the practices are incredibly diverse. They can range from bhakti, which is this really personal, heartfelt devotion to a deity, and puja, which is a form of daily ritual worship, to ancient fire ceremonies called yagna. And, of course, this also includes practices that have become known all over the world, like dhyana or meditation and yoga. And that brings us to our last section, which takes us right back to that big question from the beginning. If there's no central pope or single authority, what in the world holds all of this together? while the absolute best way to think about it is as a huge, diverse family of faiths.
A really powerful idea that allows for all this diversity is this simple phrase, one tradition, many paths. It's this beautiful acknowledgement that different people can take totally different routes to arrive at the same ultimate truth.
Now, while a lot of Hindus wouldn't actually use these labels, scholars often identify four major streams. You've got Shaivism, which focuses on the god Shiva, and Vaishnavism, which centers on Vishnu. Those are the two biggest by far. Then you have Shaktism, which honors the divine feminine, and Smartism, which sees all the major gods as just different forms of one ultimate reality. This chart just shows them as equal pieces, but in reality, they represent a massive range of beliefs and practices. And this diversity isn't just about who you worship, it's also deeply intellectual. Over the centuries, thinkers have developed 6 major schools of philosophy. Now, they all accept the authority of the ancient texts, but they build completely different systems of logic and metaphysics to try and understand the nature of reality. It's just a stunning testament to the tradition's intellectual depth.
So, to wrap it all up, the key takeaway is this. Hinduism isn't one single monolithic religion with one strict rulebook. It's really a diverse family of traditions, philosophies, and practices that are all connected by a shared set of core concepts, like karma, samsara, moksha, and dharma.
And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. If a tradition this ancient and this resilient is defined more by its incredible diversity than by a single rigid doctrine, what does that tell us about the very nature of belief itself?